Hello, fourth graders. Happy Friday. We made it through week 27. So let's see here. All right, today is the 19th. We got started with our math test this morning. So in Aware, we did our test, and that took up our entire math block. Then in reading today, we went over a benchmark review, and then we had some flashlight reading time. So in your activities, we went over where it says reading benchmark 2 silvery smiles, and we're going to do a passage a day, so you can read over that and look at the questions there. I think everybody was with us, so I don't think anybody's going to need to make that part up. And then we had some independent reading time. And then for writing today, we continue talking about apostrophes, quotation marks, and commas. So in Seesaw, we went over our week 27 writing. All right, so we were talking about, I think we started on page 9. We started talking, people had worked together. We had done a little bit, we had done a little bit independent. Most of it was done with a partner or in a group, talking about these different questions with the Fortnite background here. So some of them were over the apostrophes, the fanboys with the contractions, bringing two sentences together by using a comma. Some of them were commas. We had a few that were series, so it was 3 or more things, so you had to separate them by commas. And then I don't remember if I said apostrophes, but apostrophes as well. So this one here, it says, "You are too young for your back to be hurting," my aunt said with a chuckle in her voice. So we decided that we needed to delete the quotation mark after the period, because what's being spoken is this part right here. "You are too young for your back to be hurting." So the open quotes and close quotes, those need to be at the beginning and at the end there. So we took off that. Then this one, it says, let me move this out of the way. All these little things over here on the side are just little reminders that can help you with the solving it. So relax, my mom said as she rested the palm of her hand on my shoulder. So here we needed to insert a comma after the word relax, because the rule is, if you look over here, when it's at the beginning, notice here they said there are 3 ways to use quotation marks. So when you're using them at the beginning, notice there's that little, you can barely see it there, there's that little comma there to show that this quotation mark is at the beginning. We're pausing, and then we say that dialogue part of who is the one talking. And 11, we needed a comma after the word law, because this is a example of us connecting 2 sentences and combining them. So we're going to use that comma and that fanboy. So the fanboy that we used on this one is the word but. So that's the B in fanboy. And so it says, "Lawyers are still trying to fully understand this new law." We looked at that. We called it sentence 1 because that's what came before the comma. We said, yep, that's a complete sentence. It has the who and the what, that subject and predicate. And then after your fanboy, we do know that it has several disadvantages for people who are poor. That is a sentence as well. So because sentence 1 and sentence 2 are both complete sentences, we need that comma and the fanboy to be able to connect those 2 things together. So we went with B on that one. This one, we inserted a comma after brown. This one here, they're listing. So we've got red-tailed chipmunks are light brown, comma, weigh about 2 pounds, comma, and are usually around 12 inches tall. So here you've got 3 things: the color, the weight, and the length. So we're separating each one by putting those commas. Here, same thing. Jennifer Hudson, for the first time, they spoke, they shook hands, they took pictures. Those are 3 things that they're listing, so we're separating those by commas. This one here, we're inserting a comma after winter because here's another example of the fanboy. So we needed to check the sentence before, the sentence after, make sure that the comma is there with the fanboy, and the comma needs to go in front. Then down here, we started working on our prompt about what we want to do when we grow up. So we're writing about one job or career that we'd like to have when we grow up, explain what the job is and why you would like to have it. So 3 parts. Number 1, you need to tell what the job or the career is. So I put what I always wanted to be. I always wanted to be a teacher. So that's part 1. I need to tell the reader what that is. Part 2, I need to explain what the job is. So I need to explain, what does it mean to be a teacher? Okay, so a teacher is someone that blah, 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 blah. Okay, I need to have that in there. Part 3, why would you like it? So I'm going to tell you what it is, and then I'm going to tell you why I would like to have that job in the future. Okay, so very specific. Make sure you get all the parts. So there's some room here to brainstorm. You can continue brainstorming here. I ran out of pages. Seesaw only lets me do 20 pages. So if you need to split this page, you could do brainstorming on the left side, final on the right, and make your response there. And then once that's done, you can turn that in because we are done with that. Then we went to science, and we were reviewing. So let me bring up that. All right, so we watched a couple of these to review.
Tess and Jamie are having a pajama party. They have 2 boxes of goodies, but the box of cookies seems heavier than the box of wafers. Why is the box of cookies heavier than the box of wafers? The box of cookies is heavier because it has more mass. Mass is the amount of matter in an object. Let's use this piece of plum cake and this bar of Rice Krispie treats to understand mass. How can we measure and compare the masses of these 2 objects? Mass is measured in units called grams or kilograms. Mass can be measured with a scale called a triple beam balance. The object to be measured is placed on the pan. The riders, or the known masses on the beams, are moved until the scale balances. The amount indicated by each one of the riders is added together. The mass of the object is equal to the total mass shown by the riders. According to the scale, what is the mass of the Rice Krispie treats in grams?
All right, so you take the first one, the second one, and the third one and add them together to get your total. So this one would be 105.
It is 105 grams. Now, let's measure the mass of this piece of plum cake. According to the scale, what is the mass of the plum cake in grams? It is 215 grams. Now, compare the masses of the objects. Which of the 2 objects has more mass? The plum cake, of course. The plum cake has a lot more mass than the bar of Rice Krispie treats.
All right, so that one was on mass. Then we did this one on volume.
Have you heard the tale of the Thirsty Rook? One day, the Thirsty Rook found a pitcher with water, but the pitcher had so little water that the rook could not reach it. It picked up pebbles that were lying around the pitcher and dropped them into the pitcher one by one. This made the water level rise. The clever rook was now able to reach the water and quench its thirst. Let's explore the science behind the rook story at the lab. Observe the water level when a piece of rock is dropped into the graduated cylinder. Why does the water level rise? When dropped in water, the rock takes up some space in the cylinder. Because the water and the rock cannot take up the same space at the same time, the rock pushes out or displaces an equal amount of water. This causes the water level to rise, just like in the story. The amount of space that an object occupies is called its volume. The graduated cylinder is marked in units called milliliters and can be used to measure the volume of liquids. How can we use this graduated cylinder filled with water to measure the volume of the rock? First, record the initial level of water. It is 60 milliliters. Then, drop the rock carefully into the water. Record the final level of water. It is 68 milliliters. As we already know, the rock displaces an equal amount or volume of water. To find out the volume of the rock, we need to subtract the initial level of water from the final level of water. In this case, 68 milliliters minus 60 milliliters equals 8 milliliters. However, we measure the volume of solids in cubic centimeters. Therefore, volume of this rock is 8 cubic centimeters. We can use this method to measure the volume of objects with irregular shapes, such as this rock. How would you measure the volume of an object that has a regular shape, such as this block?
All right, we stopped there. Whoop. And then we went to density. What happened?
Jamie has created a rainbow in a glass. You could do this too. Here's what you need: some honey, water, cooking oil, rubbing alcohol, food coloring, and a glass. Don't forget your gloves and safety goggles. Mix a color with a liquid. Here's Jamie's combination of colors and liquids. We're almost ready to make our rainbow. We begin with some honey in the glass. We then pour some water very slowly to form a layer. When we do the same thing with the cooking oil and rubbing alcohol, we get a rainbow in a glass. Why do you think the liquids remain as layers and not mix? The liquids remain as layers because they have different densities. What is density? Density is the measure of how much mass an object contains compared to the amount of space it takes up or its volume. For example, a block of iron has more mass than a block of wood of the same volume. This is because the matter is packed more tightly in iron than in wood for the same volume. We say iron has greater density or is denser than wood. Observe what happens when the two blocks are dropped in water. Why does the iron block sink while the wooden block floats? That's because the density of water is greater than the density of wood and less than the density of iron. Objects that are less dense than water float on water, while objects that are denser than water sink. Let's go back to the liquids in our experiment. Observe the different layers. Which liquid has the greatest density and which one has the least? Of these liquids, honey has the greatest density. Water is less dense than honey and floats on the layer of honey. Cooking oil is less dense than honey and water and so floats on the water. Finally, rubbing alcohol has the least density and floats above the other three liquids.
All right, we skipped the magnets because we had just talked about those. All right, so that was that part. And then the second part was going to, in Brain Pop, under temperature, you have a movie and a quiz. So if you go up to the top where your notifications are, there's one notification that says just temperature. That's the quiz. You want to start off with the one that says temperature movie so you can watch the movie first and watch that and then do the quiz after. So that's just practice from the movie. So then do that. And then for social studies, we got kind of interrupted here because I was helping a couple kids finish up some things from earlier. So we kind of did a little bit of social studies on our own, and then we came back together. And Friday is a little bit different. So if you open up your Friday, Friday is a graph to look at. So here you've got the population, you've got years down here, and you've got some major cities in Texas here. So you've got Dallas, San Antonio, Galveston, Fort Worth, and El Paso. And you're starting off with some smaller populations. And we've talked about this week about these different booms. So we had a railroad boom, and it brought on a lot of changes in Texas. And so back here in 1870s, you can see the population is around, most of it's around here, a little bit over 10,000 or lower. So not very much at all. And then if you look, 30 years later, we've got this just huge growth in numbers. And a lot of this came from people coming to work jobs, not necessarily with railroads, but it could be as a result of the railroads. So like the lumber, we talked about how the lumber companies really had a big boom because they were able now to move their lumber across the country and sell a lot more. So that opened up a lot more jobs as well. So your questions are in 1900, about how many more people lived in Dallas than San Antonio. So you're just going to round and find which one of those is closest, and then how many more. So you're going to look at Dallas and you're going to look at San Antonio and find out how many more people are in Dallas in 1900. So here's 1900. You're going to look at that Dallas number. So you're going to go straight across 80,000. Then you're going to look at San Antonio. San Antonio is about 50,000 here. So then how much more is 80,000 than 50,000? Then 11, how much did San Antonio's population increase from 1880 to 1890? So San Antonio is this light blue. So 1880 is about 20,000, and 1890 is just right under 40,000. So 40,000 minus 20,000 will give you that increase, and then it's not quite 40,000. So the answer that you get is find the one that's just a little bit less, and that'll give you your answer there. Excuse me. Excuse me, I'm sneezing all day. All right. So once you're done with that, go ahead and exit out of that. Make sure that gets turned in. And then we had our fun Friday at the end of the day, and Coach came in and joined, so that was fun. And so make sure everything here should be grayed out. There should not be any green clipboards. And then in Seesaw, you've got some of you had your angle assessments, a couple corrections to make. Your benchmark should be turned in. Your writing should be turned in. Your reading should be turned in. And then remember here, you've got these math video links for benchmark and star review. So these, when you click on this, there's all different kinds of topics and different things that you can use to review different math topics there. So make sure, hang on to that and revisit it. You don't have to sit down and watch all of them in one day. It's kind of spread out and watch what you need. And so I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I will see you on Monday. Bye.